technology is present in our cities. We can't avoid it in this modern world we all live in. The use of technology in cities in order to make public services accessible and efficient puts the smart city concept in simple terms. But what really is a smart city? In today's Coffee Break with Urbana, we ask this question to Dr. Jung Won Sonn of Bartlett School of Planning at the University College London. Stay tuned and have a cup of coffee with us. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Coffee Break with Urbana, where I'm having my virtual coffee break with Dr. Jung Won Sonn of the Bartlett School of Planning at University College London. He's an urban planner and an urban economist. He is going to talk about the smart cities and the use of technology to make your cities function much better. So, Dr. Sonn, welcome to Urbana, Coffee Break with Urbana.
Okay, hi Audrey. Thank you very much for your invitation. This is a great opportunity for me to virtually meet people that I don't normally meet in our, physical lives.
Yeah. So, did you get interested in the concept of smart cities?
Right. There are many different areas of research within urban planning, and my particular focus of research is urban economic development. And within that, I have always been interested in the role of technology in urban development and urban economic development. So when smart city concept came upon, I was drawn into that. But the serious research about smart city has begun only recently because of South Korea's promotion, active promotion of a smart city.
So, most of the literature that we have read on smart city is about public service and improvements on these public services like transportation, e-banking, and all that. What is a smart city? Can you explain to us?
Well, there are hundreds of different definitions out there. So, so I will have to define it myself. I think this confusion about definition is partly because of the mixture of aim and means. And aims such as sustainability, creativity, efficiency, convenience, or participatory democracy, these are the goals, these are the aims that we want to achieve through smart city or other kinds of method. So these, I don't think we should include these in the definition of a smart city because there are other ways to achieve this. And so I want to focus on the means. Purely the means, the method part of it in defining smart city. So I would say a city with extensive IT infrastructure and intensive use of such infrastructure. That's a smart city.
So it's the intensive use of technology to better connect people to services. If I put it in the layman's term, is that correct?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
So how did this?
Another thing, and if I may,
Yeah.
another thing that I want to emphasize, it's a relative concept rather than absolute definition.
Yeah.
Because a city can be smarter than other cities. So there is no absolute smart city because a smart city of today would be less smart than newer city of tomorrow. So it's a relative concept, at least in my definition.
In your definition, it's relative.
Yes.
Yeah. So which cities do you think are smart cities?
Well,
Korea.
Because it's relative concept, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I guess all cities in global north are smarter cities than those in global south. I mean, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And cities in South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore and Hong Kong, and those in Northern European countries would be smarter than cities cities in other high-income economies. For example, cities in France and UK or Italy would be less smart than cities in Northern European countries or East Asia. So relatively speaking, uh, East Asia and the Northern European cities more smarter than cities in the rest of the world. And within this part of the world, experimental new cities like Echo Delta City in South Korea would be at the cutting edge. There are similar experiments in other places which I'm not familiar with, but these are like a smart city of all smart cities. But again, it won't be called a smart city any longer within 10 years because there will be new other
technology.
experiments.
Yeah, newer and faster technology.
That's right.
Yeah. So let me go back to that because you already touched on cities in East Asian countries and European countries, and in the article that I read that you wrote, it was really very interesting for me because one, I was fascinated with how South Korea approached the coronavirus because like everyone first they were so worried that, oh my God, Korea is the second or the third from from Italy or initially it was China, Italy, and Korea, South Korea. So in the stats, right? So people were like, oh, let's ban people coming from South Korea, from flying or from entering our countries and all that. But then I actually talked to my friend about this, and I told my friends that, you know what, because of their mass testing, I'm pretty sure that and I said this around March, that because that time South Korea already reached 8,000. And I said that, you know what, I'm pretty sure that the other countries will the number of the other countries will go higher than Korea because Korea is mass testing, and when they're mass testing, you already detect right away the cases. And you said in your article the difference, and these are the two paragraphs that I really like. The difference between the South Korean approach and that of European countries does not represent the simple cliche of Eastern collectivism versus Western individualism. In fact, information exposure can prevent the need for a lockdown of individuals' movements. In this way, governments around the world are facing a hard choice between these two violations of individual rights: information exposure and movement restriction. South Korea has chosen the former, but France and Italy had to choose the latter. The former requires the necessary infrastructure and a culture that tolerates a certain level of surveillance, neither of which can be created overnight. Can you explain that those two paragraphs when you wrote that?
Yes, so when I was writing that article, there wasn't much discussion about this cultural foundation of East Asian success, but I could predict, I could see it was coming because something happens in East Asia. It's automatically people in the West think that it's different culture, different tradition, Confucianism, Asian value, collectivism, etc. I never liked that explanation because I could almost always there is more concrete reasons for differences, and reducing all the differences into one concept. So that's quite a lazy way of doing social science.
Yeah.
But as I expected, in April and early May, when South Korean situation is known to the world, there has been many journalists who are trying to explain this from cultural tradition point of view, collectivism and obedience and Asian value, etc. But these cultural explanations can be falsified in very easily. Because so within East Asia, among 5 countries that are supposed to have Asian value, have very different approaches. The Japanese approach is quite similar to Europeans, um, not not being very aggressive about testing and taking consequences and then just relying upon people's discipline. But then South Korea and Singapore and then Taiwan tried to find every potential patient through aggressive testing and patient tracing. And then China did very restrictive lockdown. So there are at least 3 different models. And so Asian value that is supposed to be common among all these 5 doesn't explain much.
Yeah.
And another element of this cultural explanation is related to obedience. And there is a tendency in the West to see East Asians as more obedient people. And I don't want to get into that debate, but one of the obvious difference is that in countries like Singapore and Japan, one party have been ruling the country for how many years? Like 50 years. And then there was resistance to that was very rare. But then there is a South Korea and Taiwan where parties are competing and where sometimes authoritarian government is overturned by people. So I don't see Taiwanese and South Korean very obedient people.
So it's really, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So there are very concrete reasons for the success of, behind the success of Taiwan and then the South Korea. So that's the most important one is experience, because Taiwan experienced SARS in 2003, and the South Korea experienced MERS outbreak in 2015. So we did both countries had a recent experience of it. So government understands what is needed, and the people know it can be very coronavirus could be very dangerous. And in case of South Korea, there was a regime change was also played a big part. The previous administration tried to control MERS outbreak in a very intransparent way. Information was shared among health professionals and the civil servants, and the public was kept blind, and that turned out to be very bad. That was actually against the WHO guideline, but South Korean government somehow thought it's better to do it that way, and it eventually caused the public panic and the rampant fake news, and also in the end, the Seoul metropolitan government went against central government and exposed all the information, and that stopped MERS outbreak. And so current government, which won the election after the impeachment of a previous government, has strong political incentive to be opposite to the previous one. So it's an experience of MERS combined with the political incentive to be against the previous government, created this pandemic control regime, which is based on complete transparency.
Yeah. So what you mentioned is transparency and also contact tracing, right? That's one. Those two are vital in South Korea's approach to the pandemic. And I think it's important also for us individually to, if the government is not doing it, to contact trace, because right now every time I go out, I also log in where I went, who I'm with, because you never know, if at least if something happens to me, then I can call. For example, oh, my friend was here, and then I can call. Hey, I have it.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe you have to check yourself. It's I think my social obligation, especially at this time. But you also mentioned in the article about surveillance and the idea of that, where a lot of people are very apprehensive about it. They don't want to be monitored. So all these CCTV cameras that
yeah, yeah.
are outside there, people are they get nervous about it. Smart technology and and planning for smart cities. There are, for example, in Jakarta, where they're also putting together a smart city.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they installed a lot of cameras, and they're also trying to um, uh, improve their technology. But there's a question on how they use the data. I think you mentioned transparency, and there were questions on how do you use these data? Why are you gathering this data, and for what? And we people don't know. So in cases where cities such as Jakarta or in Manila, or much you know, middle income countries, how how do they, and in countries where there's also a huge income disparity in the social strata, not everyone has a smartphone, not everyone has an internet connection, not everyone also uh, know how to implement a smart city concept in their city. What do cities have to do first before they move into the smart city uh, development?
Well, uh, that's a question that is hard for me to answer, actually.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Do they have to be, you know, I do these cities have to first invest in the infrastructure, so which me or invest in the knowledge first. It's like a chicken and egg, right? So what do you think? I mean, do they invest in in educating the people first? Because in fact, actually, the technology is already there. It's just that there some areas it's not. Of course, some people don't have the resources. Uh, is it how do these cities better improve their planning through smart cities?
right. I'm more of an analyst rather than a prescriber. So it's a hard. This question is very hard to me. But so my answer has to be very general. I
Yeah.
think it has cities uh, in middle income or low income economies have to try to leapfrog rather than catch up with advanced economies. There are areas where the blank pages is better than a page that is already a page with the picture. For example, there are countries where landline is not connected everywhere. So that's a good opportunity uh, to distribute mobile phones.
Mhm.
Because if we already have all the landlines and do not have high income that is high enough to afford mobile phone for everyone, people are not going to use mobile phones. But if there is not enough landlines in the first place, it can be actually cheaper to use to distribute the mobile phone because you don't have to install all the on the landlines. Uh, and so there are countries where bank branches are not located everywhere. And that's an opportunity to implement the fintech. So, because people to get access to the banking system, people have to use mobile phones to and so the fintech can be distributed, used faster than in a country where banking system is already good. So I think it's important to find an opportunity for the leapfrogging, rather than trying to become similar to the countries that's already implementing smart city technologies.
Yeah, so I guess it's more like how cities can identify areas that they can pilot it first,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Instead of as a whole, an entire city to implement this kind of technology. A smart city, as you said, it's relative. It there's no uh, concrete definition, if I may say. Am I right, Dr. Son?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
There's no concrete definition of a smart city. It's how you use it smartly, I guess.
right. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So with that, Dr. Son, with what do you think about this question comes from from my friend Yirang, who introduced
Uh-huh.
you to me. What do you think about people who has a violent reaction towards modern technology and all this? You also already mentioned some of it earlier, but what would be your message on how to encourage people that it's not that bad?
Well, I mean, it's a, I would say it's a uh, this fear against new technology is partly legitimized, but a bit exaggerated. I think it's on the one hand, uh, it's we already have surveillance everywhere around us. It's, as I said earlier, mobile phone network providers always know where we are, and Google knows what we are looking for, and the Facebook always detects what we write and etc. So it's saying just no to everything is simply impossible, and so but it's a truth. It's a scary world. Uh, it's this famous example of this Big Brother from the novel of 1984. That's so we are afraid of it, and that's rightly so. Uh, but the issue here is that being afraid of it doesn't help. Because we are afraid of it and then try not to talk about it when paying little attention about how we can use it. Eventually, it will come. It is coming, we like it or not. The people will want this surveillance technology to be used for the national security, for pandemic control, for criminal justice, etc. So the majority of people will accept it eventually. So people who are afraid of it, people who are critical of it, should be prepared for that situation. So we should pay attention to all the details about legal framework, about how to control these surveillance data, rather than completely dismiss the usefulness of it. So I guess coming back to the South Korean example, this use of surveillance technology for the patient tracing was based on law that was passed after outbreak of MERS. So there was relatively good list of things what Center for Disease Control and Prevention can do and they cannot do. But apparently there wasn't enough. There are a few glitches, some of them quite serious, small but serious ones. Like a few weeks ago, a young man was found infected, and then his mobility was published. The name was never known, but uh, in the list of places that he visited, there was one gay club, and so
Oh.
so that created that kind of reignited the homophobia of a certain portion of the society. And the guy claimed that he isn't gay, which means two things. One is that his pandemic control became the outing of a gay guy who is still in the closet, or he is not gay and just went to a gay bar and prefers gay bars to other bars. So if you're a man with a few female friends in the group, you can go to gay bar for the women in your group. So he can be in that case. Either way, I mean, it's a bad situation for him. People think he's gay, so whether he's gay or not, it's a difficult situation for him. And even if the name is not known, because of the list of places that he visited, people around him wouldn't know that that's guy in the newspaper is him. So that's bad enough. So now, there are new ideas now these days. Like instead of listing places and the time in a person by person, you put many people's data together and then publish together. So then that's enough, because that gives enough information for the people to be cautious about. But then because data are mixed, nobody knows who's who. Right?
So it has
this
to be,
kind of things. This is improvement. People thought this legal framework that South Korea had was enough to protect the privacy, but it wasn't. But it's kind of a trial and error process, I guess.
Yeah, because it's a relatively young concept. It's relatively young. It's not. It's how long has the smart city concept been? 10 years. It's not even, I think. So it's not.
I don't know. The first time that I heard, there was about 2007. So it's a bit longer than 10 years.
Yeah, but yeah.
Then before that, there was a similar concept like intelligent city, ubiquitous city, etc. But that's technologically less developed, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess it over the years, as you said, it will still be improved, because you see, like in that case that you mentioned, that you think that it's the legal framework will solve it, will solve the issue of transparency and privacy issues. But there's also, I think, there's a role for social scientists, I guess, in this, because like in social sciences, when you do your research and when you process your data, then you know how to organize it in such a way that you can code it, and then group it and lump it, as you have mentioned, lump it into a certain group, not just patient number one from Gangnam area went to Incheon, to you can't to this restaurant, to McDonald's in Incheon, in this district, and then you can't, you have to be able to lump it together, as you mentioned. Otherwise, people really would be apprehensive on the use of the data. So on that note, I guess, Dr. Son, my last, do you have any parting message to our viewers, to the young professionals who would like to work on smart cities? Because, eventually, it's the younger generation who will take over, because more technology will be developed by these young people. So what do you think can we impart to the younger set?
Well, I guess I see in my lectures at UCL and other places, I tend to say I tend to downplay the concept of a smart city because it's just one concept that, concepts come and go. And before smart city, we were talking about creative cities. And then before that, we were talking about industrial cluster, etc. And the smart city concept will disappear or forgotten over the next 10 to 20 years. But what doesn't change is that increasing use of technology and in the new round of introduction of new technology, that doesn't change. Uh, uh, Earlier, the elevators, invention of elevators changed the heights of buildings in cities. And the introduction, mass availability of cars expanded the size of the cities, and etc. So it's a new technology comes and has influences change of the cities. So I think that doesn't change, even whether we call it smart city or whatever. So I think as planners have to be very sensitive about, planners should pay attention to technological changes. So for two reasons. One is that to predict technological change and then to do a better planner, and not to be deceived by this exaggerated utopianism that enthusiasts of technology try to promote. So there is usually a commercial interest behind it. So as an urban planner who is a guardian of a public interest, I think we have to be very cautious about what we read about from newspapers and what we hear from TVs, because often this exaggerated view about the future is promoted by uh, technology corporations that has commercial interest in it. So it is important for planners to understand the trajectory of technological development is to take side of the public rather than being deceived and to end up being taking side of commercial interest.
Yes, because at the end of the day, we are here to create better public service, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's a good takeaway to take the side of the public, because so we have to ensure that these technologies actually benefit the collective majority and not
Right.
just a single entity.
Yes.
Yes. And with that, thank you, Dr. Son, for having a coffee break with me. Can I see your mug?
Yeah, I'm drinking water, but good
Because
enough
it's a
for
very
me.
nice mug. It reminds me of Delft. Oh, but then it's also you also have the same pattern in Korea, right? That kind of ceramic pattern. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I
Uh,
got it from
Blue.
London.
Oh, okay. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Son, and thank you for having a coffee break with me. It was a very interesting, and hopefully it will enlighten a lot of people on the use of smart technology, that it's really for the better use of the public, and to encourage other young planners out there that to improve on it later on when they take over our jobs.
Right, okay. Thank you for having me. It was
Yes.
fun. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, and bye everyone, and see you again.